Good evening, everyone. Today is April 8th, 2014. Welcome to the Rossmoor Community Service District regular meeting. Can we please have a call to order and a roll call?
Director Coletta?
Here.
Director Casey?
Here.
Director Kaler?
Here.
Director DeMarco?
Here.
President Maynard?
Here. Let's all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Tonight we're going to start off with a quick presentation. This is actually one of my favorite times of being president of this board, is when we get to recognize achievement and success in our community. And tonight I want to make a special presentation to Kiva Speratos, who is principal of Rossmoor Elementary. I don't know if people have seen local in the papers, but she is Principal of the Year within the Los Alamitos School District. Her school also just won Blue Ribbon honors as well as Gold Medal honors. That was in the Orange County Register. And personally, when I see these things, it just really makes me proud. So in recognition of that, we do have a proclamation, and I'll read it. Whereas public schools are the backbone of our democracy, providing young people with the tools they need to maintain our nation's precious values of freedom, civility, and equality. And whereas Rossmoor Elementary School Principal Kiva Speratos has established a culture of high expectations and a vision and commitment to all students that exceeds the boundaries of her campus. And whereas under Ms. Speratos' leadership, Rossmoor Elementary School has become known as an explanatory elementary school with harmonious instructional focus in every classroom. Rossmoor's Academic Performance Index, known as an API, has risen from 900 to 967, making it into the top 10 performing schools in Orange County, California, and a featured gold medal winner by the Orange County Register. Whereas Ms. Speratos has created a rich educational environment that values children's academic, social, and emotional well-being. She ensures that school is safe, enriching, and enjoyable place for students to grow and flourish. Students are actively engaged in a vast array of activities, which include art, athletics, character building, and citizenship. And whereas Ms. Speratos wrote and received multiple grants to provide ongoing coaching and training for all elementary teachers, her focus on quality instruction led to the development of a district-wide summer training initiative and revitalization of the district summer school program by establishing tiered intervention systems. And whereas Ms. Kiva Speratos, principal of Rossmoor Elementary School, has been proudly selected as 2014 Principal of the Year for Los Alamitos Unified School District. Now, therefore, I, Michael Maynard, serving as president of Rossmoor Community Service District in Rossmoor, California, do hereby proclaim this year's Principal of the Year, Ms. Kiva Speratos, as an outstanding educational leader and an asset to the community of Rossmoor. Please come up. I'm going to come up here in a second.
Thank you. I really appreciate this. Thank you so much. It's a wonderful honor and it's a pleasure to serve the community of Rossmoor and the residents. And it's an absolute delight to raise the children to become great citizens, and we hope that they all come back to stay in Rossmoor too. So thank you so much for the recognition.
Thank you.
Excellent job.
Good picture.
Just this way.
All right. Where would you like me? Okay.
That's my part. They were section. No, we haven't done nothing. They just
All right. Okay. Ask away.
Go for it, Ron.
Questions from anyone?
Did anyone have any questions for her?
Questions, comments, clarifications?
Well, I just want to say that my dad was a school principal for 20 years, and I know the amount of hours that you put into your job, and I just want to thank you very much for all of your effort that you
you're
put
very
into
welcome.
the Los
Where's
Angeles School
your
District.
principal? What district?
Out in Moreno Valley. He retired several decades ago, but yeah, it's a big job.
We wear many hats,
Yes, you do.
yes. But we
Thank
make a
you.
difference, so much appreciated. Thank you.
Congratulations
All right.
on all
My
the
pleasure.
accomplishments, and again, thank you for doing what you do every single day.
My absolute pleasure.
Okay, thank you. Okay, moving on. We do not have any additions to the agenda, but at this point, I would like to hand it over to our council.
Good evening, President Maynard and members of the board. I'd like to introduce to you tonight Mr. Tarquin Preziosi from Jenkins & Hogan, an attorney with the firm. He's going to be taking over my slot for me starting at your next meeting. And I'd like you all to welcome him tonight. Say hello.
Okay. At this point, we'll move on to our public forum. Any person may address the Board of Directors at this time upon any subject within the jurisdiction of the Rossmoor Community Service District. However, any matter that requires action may be referred to staff at the discretion of the board for a report and action at a subsequent board meeting. At this point, is there anybody who would like to approach?
Committee's already.
Hi, good evening. I'm Beverly Houghton with the Rossmoor Homeowners Association Board, and I would like to give you an update on our festival that we're co-chairing with the Rossmoor Community Service District on Sunday, May 4th from 10 to 5 at Rush Park. It is going to be bigger and better than ever. We have lots of returning vendors, a lot of new vendors this year, a lot of interest in our festival. We have an excellent entertainment program. We actually have a waiting list for entertainers to come dazzle us with their talents. We have our car show, the dog parade. We have more food trucks than ever this year. And we have the rides, of course. We have all the good rides we had last year that are all the kids' favorites, the trackless train and the ponies and all those great bounce houses and the rock climbing wall. So we hope everybody will come early and stay late and have a good time, and we'll have wonderful weather, I'm sure. If you have any questions of me.
Nope.
No, it's going to be, I think, similar in terms of the activities as it has been in past years.
Yes.
But maybe just better because of lessons learned from our past experiences, I suppose.
Yeah, I would hope so, yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I think that as it's grown and got a little more structure into it, we're getting more organized each year. And we're getting excellent support. We're having, as we have in the past, from the Orange County Fire Department. They will have their big displays in the parking lot again, and the fire department will have one of their engines here. And a lot of good people will be here, and you'll be amazed, I think, at some of the vendors we have this time.
Perfect. No helicopter this year.
No helicopter.
All right.
You know, we're competing with the marathon in Huntington Beach, and they
Yes, of
feel for
course.
safety reasons the helicopter needs to be down there. So as long as they're having that conflict, we probably won't get it back.
Excellent.
So, anything else? Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Cheryl Williamson. I'm speaking to you tonight on behalf of the Rossmoor Homeowners Association Emergency Preparedness Committee. Did you know that Dr. Lucy Jones just recently said, in light of the recent earthquakes, that we are now back to our normal average of earthquakes? We're past due by 15 years. So, did you know that by most professional estimates, Rossmoorians are only nominally 5% more prepared than the national average of 10%? That means statistically the person sitting next to you is not prepared.
You could have done better.
Therefore, I'd like to invite all of you to a special meeting of the Homeowners Association Emergency Preparedness Committee this coming Thursday, the fourth Thursday of April, April 24th at 7 p.m. at Rossmoor Park Building. And we're going to be discussing CERT, C-E-R-T, Community Emergency Response Teams. This is special training. We're also going to be talking about Teen Cert. So for those of you who have teenagers or children that are going to be teens, you'll find this very interesting. One last thing I'd want to say about CERT is, who's going to be your first responder after a disaster? Your neighbor. So please invite your neighbors to come to this event too. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Diana Hill, and I'm here with two hats on, so I'm going to start with the first one. I am on the school board, and I just want to say thank you very much for honoring Mrs. Sopratos. Now I am tongue-tied. Kiva. This evening, because she really is extraordinary, and both of my children went to Rossmoor, and we're just really, really pleased with everything she's done there. So I really appreciate you recognizing her and recognizing her as Principal of the Year. Now I'll change my hat. And the other reason I'm here with Mr. Strother is for the Sugar Beet Festival, which is coming up June 7th this year. And the festival has moved. It's going to be at the shops at Rossmoor. You may or may not know that Mr. Strother and I also run Taste for La Salle and have a very good relationship with the shops over there. And the first year of the festival, we already grew out of our space in La Salle. So this really gives us an opportunity to expand and then also to really incorporate our community and our two cities, Los Alamitos, Rossmoor, and Seal Beach. And we have a lot of really great new stuff planned. We're going to do it before school ends, so hopefully that will help with bringing in the schools as well as all the local nonprofits. And Mr. Strother will speak a little bit more to that. I also have some information that I'll leave as well.
Hi there. I just want to speak, as many of you may have been to the Taste for La Salle, what that does, it benefits the activities at the high school by allowing them to sell the tickets for the event, and they keep most of the money that goes from the sale of those tickets. Just want to say we did an accounting for the school board last month, and when we actually totaled everything up, it came to, over the last 13 years, we've contributed $1.8 million to the activities at the high school. We're using the same business model for the festival here, but we're doing it with the local nonprofits in the elementary schools and the middle schools. So they basically can raise money in a couple different ways. They can raise money by selling tickets for the run, which is a 5K obstacle run. It's a fun run. If you were at the event last year, you saw we went over haystacks, we went up walls of tires, we went underneath barricades, we went down giant slides, and also went up giant slides before we went down. But it was a lot of fun there. We had a really good response. Overall, for the first year of that event, of the Sugar Beet Festival, it was a little bit more than we did the first year of the Taste for La Salle, so we're very encouraged by that, which is one of the reasons we're growing. The shops at Rossmoor gives a lot more parking. We had over 30 nonprofits participate last year, and over 20 of them actually did it to raise money. A lot of them just had a presence to make people aware of their mission, to make people aware of what their causes are, what their upcoming schedule of events are. And so if you know of any nonprofits in the area that you're fond of, let them know that they can be at our event for free. It doesn't cost anything to them if they just publicize the event a little bit, that's all. And if you have any questions, ask me. We're going to start the event also, I should say, the 5K race at the shops. Run about a K there, do a couple of the things. Then we're going to hop on the big red buses. We've made a deal with them. They're going to take us back to the area where we're at in La Salle because a lot of the merchants loved what happened up there. It got a lot of exposure for their business. So we're going to have a fun ride from the shops at Rossmoor up the boulevard, and they'll let them out right there by San Isidore's in the CIF office, and then they'll continue about 3 of the K through there. You go right through the Trend Printing. If you've never been through there, that's an amazing site. That's like the 3rd largest printer in the United States, and a lot of people don't even know it's right in our own backyard. Go through Champions Quest, Gymnastics, the baseball, the archery range out there had people, you had to fire an arrow before you could go past. And luckily nobody got hit, which is a good thing, and we're hoping that same safety record applies for next year. But it's going to be a lot of fun, and we hope you guys can get out there and have a booth and let people know that Rossmoor is, even though the shops of Rossmoor is in Seal Beach, is still the tract of Rossmoor, by gum. And so, but tell people that they shouldn't be calling Los Alamitos for a dog patrol or a police officer or whatever it is. Just get the word out there about what your guys' mission is, what you do. And if you have any of the offices around here, the agencies, let them know as well. So anyway, any questions for Diana and myself?
So they're going to race to a bus.
Yeah, but remember, this is a fundraise. It's not for time. So,
Well, these kids are competitive. I saw them last year.
Well, that'll be a bit of an equalizer. So it'll equalize them here and then equalize them when they come back.
it's like the Amazing Race. They all hit that hotel where they have to wait till 9 o'clock
There you
in the
go.
morning the next day anyway, so.
There you go.
And Southland is our title sponsor again this year, and we feel very fortunate to have them once again supporting us. And we just expect it to be a really fun day. So people here can just simply walk over and see what we have going on.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right,
Thank you very
thanks a lot.
much.
Okay, moving on. Let's go to item D in the agenda, reports to the board. Mr. Ruth.
Actually, our report to the board on the status of the I-5 or 405 improvement project. Ron Casey has been our representative and has composed a letter which has been supported by 5 other cities, I believe. And I think it'd be appropriate this time if he could bring the board up to speed on the status of that project.
Okay, thank you, Jim. As I mentioned at last month's board meeting, the EIR for the locally preferred alternative 1 has been postponed until November of this year by apparently a joint decision between OCTA and Caltrans. And what that has done, it's emboldened the I-405 corridor cities all the way from Costa Mesa through Seal Beach and Los Alamitos to come up with their own agenda, which is they call Alternative 2. Now, what that asks for is similar to a previous proposal that was out there when we've had all the policy working committee meetings in the past. It asks for Alternative 1 plus an HOV lane in each direction from Costa Mesa all the way to the county line. Now, actually, they're not claiming this is a new alternative. They're saying that this is actually the real preferred alternative, that they have all, since they're, quotes, the majority of the folks along the section, they feel that that has been the real preferred alternative all along. And what's interesting about this is, as they've developed it, there is a statement in our agenda package this evening on, well, it's page 11 of 147, but it's page 2 of the document. And it says, one of the statements in there is indicating the preference for, and this document's from 10 days ago, if you will, so it's not quite up to date, and it says they want these lanes all the way from Costa Mesa to the county line. Now, I am now in receipt of another document that came out, I believe it was last Friday, at least that's the first I've heard of it. And in their proposing this, they're saying it's much more better use of dollars to add the additional lanes, that it's going to generate better throughput on the freeways, and it's overall to them a better alternative. So now their new letter, which was like 7 days after the previous one, states as follows in consideration of their reasons, and I'll read it to you. It says, in consideration of their above reasoning, the cities recommend that OCTA and Caltrans thoroughly evaluate the viability of an alternative that would add one general purpose lane and one HOV lane between Euclid Street and Valley View Street on the I-405 freeway, which will also provide a seamless transition with the 2 HOV lanes provided by the West County Connectors Project. So based on the way they're vacillating, I'm thinking that this new dancing approach, they must have added Fred Astaire to their project team in order to come up with these conclusions. But anyway, regardless of what they're doing, I have been putting together a letter that would state to OCTA and Caltrans that Rossmoor is still behind Alternative 1 to reaffirm that posture and to let those two agencies know that. However, since I came up with that idea, Director Coletta came up with what I must admit is even a better idea, to have our entire board sign a document to that effect, and not only send the document to OCTA and Caltrans, but also include Supervisor Morlock, Assemblyman Travis Allen, and members of each of the corridor cities that are lining up with this new agenda. So basically, that is my report.
I've got questions.
I was thinking there would be a few questions.
Do you guys want to go first?
No, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Okay, so Alternative 1, I mean, they keep changing language. So where we were before and where we thought all the other communities were with, that we approved one extra lane, general purpose lane, between the 605 all the way to Costa Mesa.
Correct.
That's what you were saying,
That's Alternative 1.
that's Alternative 1.
And it adds all those lanes in addition to what the West County connectors already provide.
Right, so
That's part of what
once
they're
this
doing.
current project's done, there's one more and we get one more lane.
Exactly. And that is currently what OCTA has approved and is sponsoring. The only problem is there's now a delay in approving the EIR, which was supposed to be approved in May of this year, and now it's been postponed to November.
Okay. But now these corridor cities want to, they have an idea on here, but now here's the latest idea.
Right.
And part of that is also Seal Beach, correct?
That is now also part of Seal Beach.
Is a Seal Beach emblem on here?
Every emblem is on here from each of the cities that are adjacent to the 405 expansion. And that includes our local communities of Los Alamitos and Seal Beach.
So who orchestrated and got all these people together to come up with some ideas? You just don't get 6 city people together to form a letter. Who orchestrated this?
Well, there is a lady who is working with some of the corridor cities. Her name is Corey Williamson, and I don't want to put any other names in there, but she somehow was able to orchestrate meetings with some of the cities to solicit their views. Now, I think she represents an agency that does, let's say, coordination of project activities. I'm not sure exactly the specifics of her job. Is anybody familiar with her or what she does? I get most of the correspondence I receive is from her representing the views of the corridor cities.
Is she a lobbyist?
I would not necessarily call her a lobbyist.
She doesn't work for an agency such as Caltrans or OCTA?
No, she is not. She does not work for either of those agencies. I will get further information on her background. I apologize that I don't know the specifics of how she got these folks together, other than it was almost like a situation that was ready to be set up, because most of the cities were already in favor of 2 lanes. And so it didn't take much to push it forward.
Well,
I will tell you that much.
I do know I've talked to Gary Miller of Seal Beach many times, and the
Right.
biggest concern they had was moving the sound wall and disturbing their neighborhood. So
Yes.
looking at the original document before they enhanced it,
Yeah.
this here just looks like a lot of favors here. Fairview Bridge, that's going to get this guy happy.
Yes,
The
that is
Seal
exactly
Beach
what that is.
Boulevard sound wall, that gets them happy.
That gets
Here's
Seal
Fountain
Beach
Valley
happy.
with a berated ramp. And
Right.
what's a berated ramp?
You know, I don't know exactly how that benefits them, but they were insistent on that being in the document
People
in order
are
for them
angry
to
and
support
berated
it.
at these ramps.
So, I mean, they're all throwing their ideas together and won't support it unless they get certain favors as part of, what's happening with the development of this process.
Mr. Maynard, can I raise a couple questions?
Oh, sure.
If you're done.
Well, I'm just trying to understand a little bit of the texture here, what's happened here. But now, based on what you said, I think this warrants a new discussion. because I remember this actually sounds like Morlock, because John Morlock had the idea of, you know what? He was concerned also with the bottleneck when it hits LA County.
That's right.
So adding the extra lanes, which from a economic point of view makes sense. What didn't make sense to us was having this gridlock right in front of our homes.
That's correct. And now
That
with the
having
link-
2 lanes all the way and then slowly taper down into less lanes, and then as we get towards Long Beach and where our border hits here, I actually think sounds like a good idea worth discussing.
The interesting thing about this is I've read the latest iteration. I've only received this within the last day. It sounds to me like there's some merit in what they're doing here. If it's not going to add any additional lanes past Westminster Avenue, it's like, how much more impact is there going to be on our community? The gridlock will be spread out from Westminster, or maybe even further south than that, all the way through the county line. And it's anybody's guess is just how bad that congestion will be.
So do we have a deadline to get back to people? Is there a timeline that we have to adhere to, or do we have another meeting and we maybe call in some of these people to explain their rationales, or is there going to be
Well, actually, we had a
an
person...
environmental impact report on this concept that we then get to review before we...
That was going to be the next area of inquiry.
There's so many questions that could come off of
Yeah, well,
something.
basically, they will definitely have to do an EIR on this new proposal. There's no question about that. They've even admitted to that. But at one point in time, that will happen. That's anybody's guess, and who knows how far this will go anyway with Caltrans and OCTA. This could be dead on arrival at any time, as far as I can tell.
Can I see that letter? Can I see that letter?
Oh, sure. Hot off the press.
I have a couple of questions. I don't know, Mr. Casey, if you can answer them, but if the EIR, Environmental Impact Report for alternate 1, is delayed for a final approval,
Yes.
basically it's suspended and there's no time for which it really has to be approved. It's just basically suspended and it's on hold.
That's correct. That's
Okay.
exactly what that means.
So to me, that means, unless, I don't know, I'm not a real property lawyer, maybe there is someone in the audience that is, that could help me out, but if there's another idea that wants to come forward, then that other idea can be floated forward and be subject to an environmental impact report, such as alternate 2.
Yes, that's true.
Then that means it can get evaluated, and if it's deemed to be more prudent, fiscally sound,
Right.
the best of everything for all communities, or for most communities, let's put it that way, then technically, in my mind, it necessarily means then they can approve the EIR for alternate 2 and not approve the one for alternate 1, and finding alternate 2 is the preferred and what's approved by the most of the communities.
Potentially, but to me, I don't know how likely it is that something like this will even get to a point where an EIR would be done. I would think that there would have to be some approval by OCTA and Caltrans that there's some merit here before they would even consider doing an EIR on a new proposal.
Okay.
That's just my take on it. That's my gut feeling on it.
Mr. Casey, do you, from your point of view, because you've been tracking this more than myself, but so let me understand something. Do you think that alternate 2 is what OCTA and Caltrans, or at least one of those 2 agencies, would prefer over alternate 1?
I do. I think Caltrans would prefer it. OCTA, I don't know. Caltrans, almost for sure.
Okay.
Because I think the biggest reason for the delay in the EPA on Alternative 1 is Caltrans doesn't like it.
Mr. Nidickman, could you help me out on something on this EIR process?
Sure. I think your lawyer probably knows about it as much as I do.
Well, I know you to be a real property lawyer, so I recognize you, but...
It's not really a real estate question, it's really a CEQA question. I mean, my understanding is that the EIR, well, the EIR they are currently working on includes included in Alternative 1 and Alternative 2, which they're now modifying to include Alternative 3. That was my understanding of the process, and I may be wrong about that, but
that's not totally my understanding.
Okay. So in any event, this is a modified alternative too. And I think the answer to your question is you would not have to go and do a whole new EIR to review a modified alternative two. I don't know exactly where they are in the process on it, and maybe Greg does, but
yeah, Greg, why don't you chime in since you're our counsel, at least for tonight. I don't know about the next
but you don't have to, when you're modifying an alternative, I mean, at most you can do a supplemental, you can go back and do some further study, but you don't have to go back and reinvent the wheel. So
that's my understanding.
That shouldn't delay it in the entire process. As a commuter, I think this is a much better idea, this modified alternative two, because I do this commute every single day. And the 20 miles from Rossmoor to my office near the John Wayne Airport takes
it's a nightmare. Yeah, I know.
45 minutes to an hour when the traffic is good. So anything, adding 2 lanes is, by my math, better than adding 1 lane. Yeah. Exactly where they cut it off is problematic. If they cut it off too soon, you're going to end up with even more congestion sitting right on top of Rossmoor. The more throughput you get with the less sitting there burning fossil fuels while waiting in traffic, the better off you are.
So if they cut it off at the county line, which would be right at the intersection of the 605, 405, do we think Long Beach will just acquiesce, or would they oppose such a throughput?
I don't know that Long Beach has any right to legally oppose it. I mean, if I were Orange County, I would tell them, talk to your county and get the funds to build the project instead of throwing it all on the mass transit projects that nobody's using. But the MTA in Los Angeles has very different priorities than in Orange County, and they don't want to build freeways. They want to build all these mass transit lanes. So to me, they have bought the problem. And if you hold off improving on our side while waiting for LA County, it's never going to get done.
It will not.
Because that gives them the veto power. That's what they don't want to add more lanes to the freeway. Their MTA doesn't. That just gives them veto power over Orange County improving its situation. So my view is, an extra HOV lane is only going to help the city. I'd rather have 2 general lanes.
Mark, thanks.
But the only thing I would say about their thing is that that this would be between the I-605 and State Route 55, and that is the biggest bottleneck part, and MTA will tell you this, is between the 55 and Euclid. And they've told me, I've sat in meetings where they've told me that after Euclid, it's clear sailing. And I tell them that they ought to actually be on the freeway. I left the office today at 4:30 to be sure to get to this meeting tonight. You're welcome. And it still took me an hour, close to an hour.
I had that same experience, and I had an appointment in Irvine. I left my appointment at 4:30, and I got home at 5:30.
Yeah.
That's typical, yes.
But in Irvine, a little bit further than where you work.
Yeah, a little further. So anyway, as a private citizen, I think I would urge you to recommend, to support the 2-lane proposal, and as to what the process is.
But you answered my question on the EIR process. It isn't a whole new thing that's commenced in form of a study. It's revisiting what certain persons would deem as a hot spot that needs to be restudied.
With the caveat that it depends exactly where they are in the EIR process now, which I don't know the answer to.
Stalling. I mean, that's what it appears.
Well, EIRs, I mean, if you're expecting an EIR to come out in a couple months, Caltrans EIRs are notorious for taking years. I mean, the minimum process, you're talking legally 120 days. Practically speaking, you never get one in less than 6 months. Unless it's complete garbage.
And now they're saying they're delaying even the start of the EIR.
But my understanding was that they had already gone through some of that EIR process on the first 2 alternatives.
I thought that as well, but I hear mixed stories on that.
That's what everybody was complaining about, was you're throwing in alternative 3 after you had done the process. So.
Oh yeah. Oh, anyway, with the hot lane.
I hope that added more light than confusion. Thank you.
Mr. Casey, now this letter is dated April 3rd, 2014, and it doesn't bear all the signatures for the 6 mayors, but
that can't be a valid a valid date, because as of 10 days ago, this proposal was nowhere in sight. This is the first I've heard of this cutoff.
okay.
And that's within the last week.
Okay,
I can't explain the date they put on that letter. That's their document, so
No, I understand.
I really don't know.
So assuming this date is correct, April 3rd, 2014, you weren't invited to attend a meeting with this?
Not that particular meeting. I've been invited to attend many of their meetings, however, not this one,
Okay. It's interesting.
to say the least.
It is interesting.
So where do we go with this, Ron? Are you going to make a motion? Are we going to table it for next month and maybe get, Ms. Diane Carey or someone here to give us anything? I mean, where are you going with this?
I was going with this where we would sign, if we are in agreement, a document saying that we are still in favor of alternative 1, the preferred alternative, period. But now when I read this document, I'm not so sure the way they've structured this that it's really that bad of an idea. So because of that, I'm thinking it might be best to table it. I don't think time is of the essence in terms of doing anything. Whatever stance the cities take, this is not going to go anywhere for months for sure. So I think we have nothing to lose by tabling it for a month, gathering more information, including me finding out who this lady that's coordinating a lot of these activities, exactly who she represents, which I don't know, and that we move forward in that manner. Are any other thoughts? Anyone else have thoughts on this?
I certainly would invite more information from my point of view. I'm not convinced necessarily that the letter tonight and the emboldened portion of the letter on page 1 or any parts above and below are necessarily neutral. I would need to ask more questions. But the thing that, setting that aside for just a moment, and I think it's a great idea to find out more information, I'm really a little disturbed about your being excluded or this community being excluded or at a minimum our manager being contacted, whether in writing, email, a phone call, some manner. I don't understand why we'd be excluded. It was always my understanding that we were part of the corridor cities and being treated equally. I'm a bit disturbed that absent from that letter is the Rossmoor emblem, yourself or Mr. Maynard to sign the letter. I don't understand why we would not be included. Maybe Mr. Morlock was contacted. Maybe he has a place for his signature on another letter that I'm not aware of. So
I have no idea about that. That I cannot say.
But I think there's questions that need to be answered. And setting aside
I do as well, but what's interesting about this is they seem to selectively invite me to some of the meetings and exclude me from others. And it's hard to know what you're being excluded from until after the fact, when I get the correspondence pertaining to the subject matter saying, hey, look, here's what we just did. And I'm saying, wow, I had no idea that's what you were going to be doing. So I think I'm sort of being toyed with like a puppet saying...
Who calls these meetings, Ron?
The meetings...
You say you're invited to some, but not all. Who sends you invites?
I get invitations from 3 different people. The Corey Williamson I mentioned, who I will find out her specific function on this. And my other 2 liaison is Gary Miller of Seal Beach and Diana Carey of Westminster. So between the 3 of them, they always promise me to give me any information about what's going on, and they've invited me to many of their meetings, but obviously not all of them.
Mr. Ruth, is there any way we can get this a little bit more formalized?
Absolutely.
Find out who calls these meetings, who is the captain of this.
We'll find out.
Because I agree with Alfred, especially when we actually look at the 405 freeway and how much Rossmoor borders it. But for some reason, Los Alamitos, that doesn't have any border with it. Primarily, they get to have say and we don't. So I've always had a problem when we do not get a seat at the table.
Absolutely.
I would like to figure out how to have this a little more formalized. So by default, the default is Rossmoor is there. Whether that's you, whether it's Mr. Casey or whoever represents us, but we do need to be a part of that. And I do think that let's have this on the agenda next week. Or I'm sorry, next month, thank you, with the sole thing of finding clarity, because right now it doesn't seem like we have a lot of clarity. So let's figure out.
This is like Jell-O. It just keeps metamorphosing in different directions.
Review it next month, and hopefully we'll get more clarity, and maybe there'll be people who can actually explain what happened and what the catalyst for it and what the intention was.
Will do. We'll follow up.
All right.
No problem at all. We'll work with Mr. Casey on it. Director Casey.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ruth.
Okay, moving in our agenda. We're now on section E, the consent calendar. Our minutes and February revenue expenditure report. Does anyone want to pull anything or?
No. Nope.
Is there a motion to accept this?
I make the motion to accept the consent calendar items 1 and 2.
Okay. Is there a second? Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Will it be known that passed 5-0? Moving on to our regular calendar, we have investment committee recommendations regarding our reinvestment of reserve accounts. That's H1.
Thank you, Mr. President. Yes, the report and recommendation is to receive the report and approve the recommendation of the Investment Committee regarding required reserves in the Rush Park Bond Fund Reserve Account. The Investment Committee met on March 27, 2014 to review investments and make recommendations to the board. Documents were reviewed by the committee on the district's investment portfolio, and those are attached. The committee reviewed the recommendations of staff and the district's financial advisor regarding required reserves in the Fund 20 Rush Park Bond Fund. There currently exists a required amount of $362,770 in a reserve account at U.S. Bank and the Money Market Fund. This investment is currently paying 0.05% interest. Currently available agency bonds are yielding about 0.25% for a 2-year term and 0.42 for a 1-year term. Bond covenants are very restrictive on this type of investments for the Rush Park Bond Fund Reserve Account. And since the market conditions have not dramatically improved and on a 1-year CD rate is not a viable option, for the committee is recommending that the Fund 20 reserve monies be reinvested in the agency bonds rather than current money market account. Based on these developments, the investment committee was asked to revisit the previously approved investment directions, make recommendations to the board as follows. The committee's recommendations are: 1, continue to invest all Fund 10 reserves in the LAIF until such time as market conditions improved. We have about $600,000 in that account right now. Invest one half of the Fund 20 reserve account, $181,385 in a U.S. agency note for a term of 1 year. Invest one half of the Fund 20 reserve account, $181,385 in a U.S. agency note for a term of 2 years. And these interest rates are subject to change on a daily basis, but that's our recommendation, the committee's recommendation for your consideration this evening.
I have a question. You say that the recommendation was to invest half of it in the 1 year and half in the 2 year.
Yes.
I'm wondering if anyone considered investing all of it in the 1 year, since the 1 year seems to pay a larger interest rate, and then the money would be available at the end of that year in case interest rates have changed. Well, they may change for the worse, but they could change for the better, so that the money isn't tied up for 2 years.
I believe that was considered, but I think this is consistent with your board policy for investment policy, and also on the bond covenants, that I don't think you can put it all into 1 year.
Director Casey, we talked about that in committee. You can't invest all of the money in one fund. So the recommendation by the district financial advisor is to cut it in half, invest It's actually a 2-year and then a 3-year.
Oh, I thought it was a 1 year and a 2
Oh,
year.
is it 1 year and a 2 year? Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
Or
You're both on the committee,
2014,
right?
So it's
Yeah.
1 and
Okay.
2.
1 and 2.
Yeah, it's 1 and 2, sorry.
Okay.
The interest rates
So-
are so low in our hands
Oh my God,
per
they're horrible.
policy 3035.32. We're so
Yeah.
restricted on what we can do according to our own district policies as well as some of the governmental policies.
Understood.
I
think there was a difference of
I think
300.
we
Yeah.
calced that and we asked General Manager Ruth to tell us, and he says it was like a gross total dollar amount of like, what, $200 or $300 over like a
Yeah,
2-year
it's-
period. It was
yeah,
like,
I'm sure it's small
It didn't
change.
really, it was like, ugh,
Yeah.
just awful.
Okay.
And the term YTM, what does YTM stand for? I understand APR. What?
Yield,
Yield to
Yield to
maturity.
maturity? Okay.
Oh, is that what that, all right.
So in other words, okay, it's not annual, it's just for the length of the note.
Yeah,
Okay.
we're
Yeah, I did the math, and we're not making a lot on this investment at all.
So you got that right.
But these are reserves that are not required to be liquid anyway,
right.
because that's the only thing I would think is liquidity versus the $1,200. But the whole nature of this fund is not to ever be required for liquidity, correct?
Right.
correct.
Okay.
All right, fair enough.
Any other questions to the committee? Okay. Is there someone on the committee who wants to make a motion?
Sure, I move that we accept this report and take the recommendation from the financial advisor and from our committee to reinvest Fund 20 as stated in the report at a 1-year term and to half of it for 1 year, $181,385 to a 1-year term, and $181,385 to a 2-year term in a U.S. agency note.
Okay. Someone on the committee want to second that?
I'll second that.
Okay. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Let you know, H1 passed 5-0, which takes us to H2 Budget Committee recommendations regarding the upgrade of district computer systems.
Thank you, Mr. President. As directed by the board, as you recall, we had quite a spirited discussion on this item at the last board meeting. There was a lot of great input, and the concern of the committee was to go back and make sure that what we're doing is going to give us the flexibility that we need for the future, moving into the cloud, which was a huge issue for us, and do some more research in terms of seeing if we can drive the cost down. And I will say that Liz Deering, our administrative assistant, in my opinion, has done a marvelous job of going back, following board's direction, and doing that research, and basically finding out that of the 21 agencies that we basically surveyed out there, that all of them are in the half in the cloud, and they're all hybrid, let me put it that way. And we've also brought in a consultant to look, who donated her time to look over what we're doing. We also got a lot of input from the private sector out there, and we referred it to the Budget Committee, and they spent considerable time reviewing the staff recommendations and all the reports that are included in this document here tonight. So the recommendation is to adopt option 2 for your consideration, but I'll certainly let the committee, who spent a lot of time in that Budget Committee meeting reviewing these documents, and give their input to this process as well. But staff is strongly recommending option B, or option 2, and basically the committee recommended that as well.
There was a lot of information.
Again, this is the two of you?
Yes, yes.
First question, how long did you meet and discuss this?
A long time.
An hour,
Yeah.
good over an hour.
Yeah, and listen, Director DeMarco and I, we're fully technology up to speed, and we were absolutely leaning towards the cloud option.
Yep.
And at the end of the day, after looking at the options and really asking board staff or district staff to go above and beyond in collecting data, and I mean, what you've done, Liz, is a research report on the state of
This is done
local on the
outstanding
governments
job.
in Southern California and where they are in their technology landscape. This should be packaged and sold to other like counties and agencies and stuff, but right now it just doesn't pencil out.
Yep.
That is the bottom line. I wanted it to pencil out, trust me. I was trying to find ways to make it pencil out, and it doesn't at all.
Yep.
Right, we're still probably 3 years away, at least in this landscape, of being able to to make it make fiscal sense.
Now, if you looked on page 61 on our handout or on our Dropbox, we have most of the things that we use in the office, the iPads, communication, storage, website, is already on the cloud. So, the issue is our server, because our server, we need a new server, and we need to update desktops. Well, we're going to need to update desktops anyways, even if you have a cloud, because you got to connect to the cloud. So you're really talking about the server. So what staff recommended was, instead of getting the best of the best server for, if you look at what we're using our server for, storage, security, networking, firewall, antivirus, I would say most servers do that. Okay, we're doing a proprietary software for reservations, right?
RCSR, right?
Okay. We don't know if that's going to be compatible with a new, server, cloud server, and we do our financial software on there. So we're doing two little softwares, two programs, and the pricing, they don't have pricing for that little of from what I'm gathering, they just don't have pricing for that. And if you go now to page, I think it's 69, where it has the let me see. No, it's more than that.
Numbers are hard to read.
Yeah. Where's the pricing list that you compare the pricing? Oh, I'm
That
sorry.
should be at the,
69, yeah, okay. So if you look on page 69, where it says...
Can you show me what your page 69 looks
Yeah,
like?
because the numbers
are hard
at the bottom.
Is there a number above the 69 of 30?
Right here, this page here.
Yeah,
Well, thank you.
Yes, this one.
Thank you.
There you go, that page there. So if you look at these numbers,
I'm trying to find it.
in terms of the yearly cost, it just doesn't make sense. You're talking about $8,000 a year, $22,000, this
Okay,
is for
there we go.
cloud. So, I mean, whereas we're talking about just to get a new server, so option 2, get a new server, update the computers you need to update, many of which have XP, which are no longer going to be supported by Microsoft. We're looking at, help me out, a cost of $10,000?
11 max.
11 max. And we were discussing, they were doing minimum memory, and we were saying, we'd probably want to upgrade and get the higher memory. So there might be a few, maybe 1,000 or 2 higher than that. But certainly it was lower than we budgeted 17.5.
17.5, that's correct.
And Liz's first estimate for with the larger capacity server was 15,000. So option 2 says, we just get a lesser server, right? Or
the original server was really far more than what we needed.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. And so this one is triple the amount.
Of what we have
that
now.
we have now.
And again, looking at the cost for the cloud, again, I didn't think it was going to be this much money. I mean, certainly that's where the future is. And then the other thing we consider too is we have, we are a public district, you got, how's our information being protected, and not a lot of districts or cities are on the cloud yet because of this reason and others. So a little too soon, we need to make the decision today.
Right.
Okay, so both Director Kaylor and I just thought, if we had a year to consider this, maybe.
Yeah, sure.
But option 2 is certainly the recommendation.
We've got a dead product in XP.
Yep, oh, definitely.
The decision has to be made.
Yeah.
Is there any other questions that anyone has for this committee before I'm going to ask for motions?
Well, it just sounds like this, everything considered, is the wrong time to go to the cloud because there's a lot of unknowns. The costs are going to be probably pretty extensive, and we have a short time to make a decision, so that puts it out of the question to go in that direction.
Let me just clarify, Ron, it's not 100% or nothing. I mean, we're already partially in the cloud now.
No, I understand that.
You're talking Cal Cloud. In terms of some of the
Yeah, I'm
backup.
talking about Cal Cloud.
Yeah, but in terms of making a 100% jump, it's just not there.
And the 100% is literally not buying a server and renting a server on the cloud.
Sounds
That's
way
really
too
the
risky.
decision.
But we have such obsolete computers that need to be updated.
Yeah.
So we're going to go with a couple 2-3 year option, and then in 3 years or so, then we'll go and revisit this.
And you're also recommending that to do some beta testing during this whole CalCloud.
Yeah, the CalCloud, there, which is brand new from the state of California.
Right.
Right? And that's definitely, they don't even have a product yet.
I have a question for Ms. Deering. We're currently, as configured, using a cloud.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
Currently, the way our systems are configured, we're using some of the cloud, is that correct?
Some of it, yes.
Okay. Option 2 requires the same cooperation with the cloud.
That's correct.
With option 2, in your view, is the security risks to the district the same, greater, or less with option 2?
I'd say it's the same at this point. I mean, we're just, we're going to, I'm glad we did this because we really have a clearer picture of what we're doing now, what we want to do in the future. And there are other options out there. I'd really like to upgrade.
I'm not concerned about that. I'm just concerned about the narrow facet of
Right now.
security. That's my sole focus.
We're not
If
any
it's
more
the same,
We're not any more vulnerable.
or in your view, the same, then we've already had a trial run for some seasons on the cloud, in part. And to my knowledge, we've never had a red flag raised from you or former staff or anyone that has said, well, our security, our data, if there be any, confidential information, has been compromised.
Not to my knowledge, no.
So,
Now, I will just say that one of the things that this application inventory brought to mind was our proprietary facility rental permit app, RCSR. At some point in the future, the district may have to revisit getting out of the custom label app business and finding something that's off the shelf. But that's not today, but I've just put that in the record, that we can't continue to maintain and fix this, 3, 4, 5, 10 years from now.
So going with this option should provide a stable environment for some time to come?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
3 years, 4 years?
3 to 5.
Yeah.
That sounds good to me.
Yeah.
That's a long time.
It seems prudent and responsible in the sense that the cloud is not being ignored. We're in a hybrid.
Yeah.
There is a path, and again, Liz, you did a fantastic job.
Fantastic job.
Very impressed with the level of detail and clarity you provided here. But we're not backing off, but we're doing what's prudent right now, and then we get to embrace the cloud on our own terms and under our own timelines.
Exactly.
Not Bill Gates. So,
Bill Gates.
is there a motion?
Before I
or
make
you want to continue?
a motion, I just have a question on your option 2, or to refresh my memory. Where does it say about the desktop computers, or what did we say?
The spreadsheet that,
Well, no, the upgrading the smaller computers that we have in the office.
I believe, let me go back here on the spreadsheet.
Because I saw that, the $249 purchase new PC starting at $249, but it's not under this option 2.
Are you talking about this spreadsheet up here? Is that what you're referring to? Where we crossed off
Upgrades.
what we're not going to do as opposed to what we were initially going to do?
Yes, but there was also, you had a couple line items, because one of them were to upgrade, and then the other one's to purchase new. And this document's so large, I can't find that where I saw that. I have it in a note, but
I think it's page 55? 55.
okay. So your recommended option 2, does it allow for the upgrade of your desktop computers that are on XP that need to be upgraded?
Yes, it does.
Okay, so option 2 does that.
Uh-huh.
So I move that we accept staff's recommendation for option 2 as specified on page 50. I can read it if you want me to, but it's a couple paragraphs.
That's fine.
Okay.
I'll second.
Okay. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Let it know, Budget Committee recommendation for upgrade of district computer, pass 5-0. Brings us to H3. Another Budget Committee recommendation, the renewal of the HTG Group consulting agreement.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. This proposal involves a one-year extension of the HT Group to perform essential consulting services to RCSD in an effort to expedite our ability to address certain important issues pending in our community. Mr. Tabata will be employed under the direction and supervision of the General Manager. He'll be focusing on the fee study, which was directed by the Board. The Facilities and Activities Use Survey is also directed by the Board. Extensive review of all Board policies in an effort to clarify and strengthen our policies to remove ambiguities and convert, where appropriate, to ordinances for greater enforcement. Grants and funding for CIP projects, aggressively going after outside funding. Develop a phased improvement program for our Montecito Center, which is in great need of some upgrading. Oversee the Signature Wall Rehabilitation Project, perform other related duties as approved by and directed by the General Manager. Under this proposal, Mr. Tabata will be working 20 hours per week for 36 weeks at a rate of $85 per hour. It is estimated some of these costs could be offset by reducing the dependence on outside consultants and successfully pursuing grant opportunities for capital improvement projects. Funds are included in Fund 10 budget to cover these expenses. Mr. Tabata would provide monthly progress reports to the General Manager, and his contract could be terminated at any time with or without cause. And I would say that based on the 20 hours per week that he'd be working at $85 per hour, which is an increase over his current hourly rate of $65 an hour, that those hours would be flexible back and forth, but it would not exceed 20 hours a week at 80 hours a month, and that will be under my direct supervision, and he will be providing those monthly reports to document the progress we're making on each of those items as enumerated in my presentation tonight. I think his background experience of 8 years here with the district, but almost 50 years in government, is a great asset to us, and if we went out to procure that kind of service under a consultant outside of the district here today, I'll guarantee the cost would be, in my opinion, be exceptionally more. So I recommend that for your consideration tonight. This has been reviewed by the Budget Committee, and they may want to comment on this proposal for your consideration tonight as well.
Well, I'd just like to make one comment on that. It says here in the proposed agreement, $85 an hour, 20 hours a week, but on the termination clause.
What page are you on, Mr. Kaler?
I believe it's 104 of 147. It's the consultant may, notice will be writing at least 30 days. I'm not.
Consultant would have to give us 30-day notice. We could terminate without cause at any time.
Where is that? Is that 11A? Never mind. Okay. Okay. Yeah. So, sorry, I was reading. I was just reading a different portion of this agreement. We went around and around on this, and we gave this a lot of thought. And the thought is, over the next year, we have a lot of projects and activities and tasks that are happening and impacting the district, and a resource as valuable as Mr. Tabawada and his team is something that will absolutely benefit the district in allowing us to achieve maximum results with a minimum amount of effort in a lot of key areas, just because of his quote-unquote, what I like to use, just tribal knowledge of how to get stuff done. You know, it's not the number of hours, it's the output that we get. Mm-hmm. And I feel comfortable with the minimum hours involved in this. I believe that there's a significant amount of work that needs to be done. Mm-hmm. And the way that the agreement's written is if the district finds that there's just not work there, then the district and the board can take their own take the appropriate action at that time.
Okay.
So the committee feels that 36 weeks or less is an adequate time frame to cover all the activities that Mr. Taboada will be engaged in?
I'm not following you.
Well, no, the contract calls for 36 weeks, up to a maximum of 36 weeks.
Right.
So that's in there because, the reason is because he can complete the assignments in that time frame
Well, we
or
can exceed
sooner?
that if the district, if the board decides that we need to engage his services additionally to that, then we obviously have that
So
right
this
to
is
go
just a
elsewhere.
starting point. 36 weeks is like a starting point
No, I-
for this relationship. Is that
Well,
what I'm hearing?
I don't.
Let him use his own words.
I don't know where you're getting the 36 weeks, Director Casey.
I
but
just
the
read it
agreement-
in,
Where do you see, it says,
where did I just read it. I'm
I
on
see
the pages.
103 of 147, consultant shall devote a minimum of 60 hours of labor per month. Where would you see this 36 weeks that you speak of?
Page 102 of 147.
Mr. Tabata has recommended for our consideration in this contract that he would work 36 weeks out of the year.
Okay.
Out of the year at 20 hours a week. Let me assure the board that as we looked at all the projects, and frankly, there's an awful lot going on here, that we felt it was meritorious to retain his services and his background experience for this transition period of time. At any time that we feel the work is not there, I'd be coming back to the board with a recommendation. If we felt that we needed more time, I would come back to the board. You're the ultimate decision maker. But based on our assessment of the projects we've identified here, and frankly, we've made every attempt to make sure we're covering the bases here, but every day, every week of every day almost, there's something new pops up. So, we're under the gun all the time, and that's good. I mean, that's our job, and we thrive on that. But I would suggest to the board that based on our assessment, that's what we think the needs are for the next year. If it's less than that, I would come back to the board. If it's more than that, I would come back to the board. I do not anticipate it being more than that.
Okay, fair enough.
I have a question. Legal counsel, have you reviewed this document?
Yes.
Okay. And this does give us that flexibility that if all of a sudden we don't have 36 weeks of work or 20 hours, we are able to dial back on that. This is a flexible document.
The district can terminate the agreement at any time.
Well, I don't see a vision of terminating anything, but to me, it's more of a balance act.
Right.
Obviously, his expertise, his history, everything that he has done on the board has been top-notch. I don't see the termination. I just see the flexibility of hours of what we need versus what is in here. So I'm just wanted to ask you point blank that we do have the flexibility, that we're in the driving seat, as Mr. Ruth said, that if all of a sudden we need more, we have the ability to ask for more, and if we need less, we have the ability to ask for less.
Absolutely. The agreement contemplates a total of 36 weeks of work, not necessarily consecutive, because you can see the term of the agreement is actually 1 year. So it's 36 weeks of work within the year period, and you can always come back and amend the agreement however you would like.
Okay.
I have a couple questions. Mr. Kovacevic, look at scope of services paragraph on page 103 of 47, if you have it before you. You have a hard copy in front of you?
Yes.
Okay. Could you interpret for me what 2C means in plain English?
Right. We talked about that earlier. This is probably a leftover from an earlier iteration of the agreement, and it may be something that you want to remove, or maybe something Henry wants to remove, but it imposes an obligation to work at least 60 hours per month. And if you want the flexibility to have this 36 weeks actually worked at any time during the year, you may want to eliminate that language. And I would recommend taking out from the word shall all the way up to the next shall, so that sentence just reads consultant shall maintain records of time spent performing assigned tasks.
See, the very thing that this paragraph did was to lock in this agreement to require the HT group to work 60 hours minimum, mandatorily, per month. And times 36 comes out to 720 hours, which comes out to the very thing that was proposed initially. It's the same thing. It's something I think this board should very seriously consider. What Mr. Kovacevic just stated is to strike paragraph 2C in its entirety. It then would allow the manager the minimum, if at all any, and upward of what's proposed of 720 hours per year, the weeks of which can be consecutive, that can be split up as however are agreed upon between HT Group and Mr. Ruth and the tasks at hand. But something other than that, which is what you have here in writing right now, locks you into the position where the manager doesn't have the diversity. I have no issue with the rate of per hour compensation. I have none whatsoever. It's not a lack of confidence in HT Group. It doesn't allow the flexibility of the manager. And I trust the manager that he's going to employ the tools that he needs. I trust Mr. Ruth, if he needs 30 hours a week, he's going to come back next month and say, you know what, guys, we kind of talked about 20 hours a week maybe, but we had this one project that's taken a lot of time. It's taken my time, if you hadn't noticed it, and it's taken more than 20 hours of HT Groups. And I just think the flexibility is necessary.
Another option is to eliminate references to 20 hours per week and 36 weeks and just use the number and make it a not-to-exceed agreement.
720.
Say he works by the hour at $85 an hour in this contract. It's for a term of 1 year, not to exceed whatever 20 times 85 times 36 is. It amounts to the same thing, but then it's completely...
Sounds like better flexibility.
That's even better suggestion.
It's still, even the way it's written, it's flexible from the district's perspective.
Right.
You can always do what you want, but the not to exceed amount in striking that language from 2C makes it more flexible from Henry's point of view as well. Everybody's in the same boat then. He will respond to Jim's direction as needed and work when he's needed. Won't have any need to work when he's not needed. Won't have a minimum number of hours per month when the tasks don't demand it. And you still will not be paying over a certain amount under the contract for any reason, unless you amend it in writing.
That makes sense to me.
Well, General Manager Ruth, what if that change were to be proposed, how does that impact? I mean, tell me how you envision this occurring over the next 12 months. Do you anticipate that the HT Group will have surges in needs where one month could be 0, the next month could be 90 hours and 20 hours, and
I think in this business, you're always going to have surges. It's just the way it is. Things come up that you don't anticipate. And I appreciate the comments tonight because you need that flexibility. I don't think Mr. Tabata or myself would have any problem with that changed language that you had recommended that would give us that flexibility, or even the option that you laid out.
That's 61,200.
Yeah, that would be fine.
So I would motion that if, Mr. Kovacevic, if you could state the motion as you best have gleaned from listening to us, respond to your suggestions, and then, assuming the board approves it with a second and votes for it by a majority, that you remit to the manager a contract by the end of the week, by Friday?
Oh, yeah, well, I can do it tonight.
Okay. And ready for a signature by the manager and the president?
Right. The motion would be to approve the contract as presented in your packet with 2 changes. One is to modify paragraph 1C, the consideration paragraph, to provide an hourly rate to Mr. Tabata of $85 an hour. But instead of referencing 20 hours per week maximum and 36 weeks, we would change that to a maximum total payment under the contract over the course of 1 year, the term of the agreement, to $61,200. And then in paragraph 2C, I wouldn't recommend striking the entire paragraph. I'd recommend striking from the word shall all the way up to the next shall. So that sentence, after the adjustment, would read, consultant shall maintain records of time spent performing assigned tasks.
I would make that motion.
Before there's a second, Mr. Tabata, can you please come up?
Oh, and I would also, before he comes up, and there's a typo in paragraph 7. It refers to section 12. It should refer to section 11, so we correct that typo.
Okay. Mr. Ruth spoke on your behalf, saying you would be okay with this, but I would like to hear from you.
I'm perfectly fine with that.
Okay.
It's been my practice, as you know, for me to constantly look for diminishing hours and flex time to do other ventures, and so this works perfectly for me. And with your approval, I thank you for your consideration.
Okay, great.
I second that motion.
That didn't take long.
Good, it should be a budget committee guy, so.
Thank you.
Okay, all in favor as the motion was stated, as council said, how he's going to clean up this document. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed?
Thank you
Let
very
it be known.
much.
That's fine.
Renewal of HT Group under revision of contracts 5.0. Brings us to H4, discussion and possible action regarding the placement of Southern California Gas Company smart meters and transmission antennas within the district. Mr. Ruth.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. Once again, working with the board's direction, exploring what options we may have through the gas company in the County of Orange. We did set up the meeting as requested by the board. We did not get a meeting with the CEO's office, but frankly, I think we had a better opportunity with the Director of Public Works, who is fairly new to the county, Mr. Silsby, and his associate, which is the planning director, which is Rick Sanzamar. And Director Coletta and Director Casey attended that meeting on Friday afternoon at 4 o'clock last Friday. And I'd like to have them give their insights to the meeting. Personally, I think that we're fortunate. Sometimes when change happens, you kind of take a deep breath and say, oh my gosh, we know what we have, but we don't know what we got. Both of these gentlemen from the county are very, very professional and very experienced. And Mr. Silsby comes from Phoenix, Arizona, as their new Public Works Director, and has had extensive experience working with cable and utility companies in Phoenix, and brings that depth of experience to Orange County, which I think is going to be a real benefit to us. He did indicate to us that he's working with the Edison Company to look at options. He also talked to us about looking at county properties that may be appropriate if they're available, and he's going to get back to us. But with those comments, I'll let Director Casey and Director Coletta comment accordingly. They both participated and represented Rossmoor Community District here in a very positive and professional manner.
Good, I got to turn this way now.
You can turn over here anytime you like. What I was particularly impressed with is both gentlemen were saying we're not interested in issuing a permit for this thing until we've exhausted a lot of different options. Not just the idea of placing a pole at one direction on Foster Road or one location versus a second one like at Gertrude. They said there's other ways of doing this. You could explore other poles, different heights for the poles, and maybe position them in different locations, potentially out of Rossmoor. And they were saying, we are in no hurry to make a decision until we know a lot more about the configuration we have here, what the possibilities are in terms of alternatives to what they suggested. And my understanding was they were going to be willing to work with us to determine what these alternatives are and what we might be able to do going forward. So I think maybe Alfred would like to add to that, or whatever his ideas are in terms of how he came out of that.
No, I think you're right on target. The other thing they did mention is going back, as this board previously explored, why can't we work with Edison Company? Why can't Edison Company cohabitate one of their poles?
Precisely.
And the county's going to really look into that pretty forcefully and see if they can get better cooperation out of the Edison Company to consider that possibility.
Yeah, exactly. These guys are very flexible in their thinking. It's like, I don't like to use an old term, thinking out of the box.
Right.
But it would seem to be along those lines, that they don't just kind of put blinders on and say, here's the direction we're going in, period. They came in with an open mind saying, we'll explore just about any possibility or proposal that seems halfway reasonable. And I thought that was terrific.
Well, we were all driven by the fact that we had heard that the processing that permit was imminent at any time. And now what we're hearing, because of the change in leadership of the county, that is not necessarily true. And they are going to explore all these options before they decide whether they're going to issue that permit or not. So.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, mind you, I have not had conversations with Mr. Casey and Mr. Ruth after the meeting, but I was delighted to have a meeting with the director of, and I'm not certain of their jurisdictional responsibilities, but the gentleman's name you just used, Mr. Ruth?
Silsby.
Silsby?
Sean Silsby is the director, Public Works Director,
And
yes.
who was the other gentleman's last name?
The other one is Richard
Sansamire?
Sansamire?
Sansamar.
Yeah.
And what was Sansamir's
He's the planning director for the
planning director? So we met with both. The thing that's unique to the County of Orange is two things. One, it's functioned like a number of counties and municipalities with regards to utilities, the easements written decades ago, generations ago, and interpreting these easements in gross as they would relate to new technology. Everyone understands that it was plumbing, gas or water, or overhead lines, telephone, electric lines, telephone poles, which we're all accustomed to. We're all mature men here. We've had some relative or a home we've lived in or visited where that was the situation. Today, more recently in the 60s, we see the master plan communities, which a departure from us is suburbia in Los Alamitos, which has mainly underground utilities and lamp standards. You don't see light poles, electric poles. You don't see telephone lines. Everything is underground. I would like to think that those easements are probably more appropriately geared to that little master plan community. I don't know. But looking at our easements from the county issued for unincorporated areas, they envision something different 70, 80 years ago than what's made available in technology recently. I say that because there isn't a protocol today, per se, that fits the new technology regarding permit vetting in the County of Orange, whether the necessary interpretation of easements in gross then, years ago, translates the same to today's technology. So this gentleman from Arizona, who's now the Director of Planning and Redevelopment, County of Orange, has had that experience in another state with utilities and new technology. He has come into this, if you will, like from the pan to the fire, with our situation as the basis to launch into reviewing what is the protocol in the County of Orange. And then in turn, it turns out that he's having to create a template, if you will, for vetting utilities. Because we can all expect the water company to be next coming through. Today, digital analog meters are what we have at our curbside. So at some point, whether it's seasonally they determine your water consumption or monthly, I don't know. I'm not home when the meter man comes to read my water meter, but some communities, they read averages certain times of the year, and then they project what your consumption is for the balance of the months of the year. At some point, they're going to dispense with that because of their carbon footprint that they want to cooperate with by reducing, thereby having automated reading of meters, just like the gas company is proposing. The question becomes, is your easement of the past read in a manner that allows you to have that same easement, that same access to a private parkway versus coming onto someone's property and telemetering data from the side of your house or the back of your house to a pole some distance from the house? Not sure. The arguments can go both ways, and it'll be a very interesting contest. But that would cost a lot of money. But for right now, given that there is this big gap, this gentleman, Silsby,
Yes.
is crafting, if you will, with a team of people and hoping to gain support within the county to cause this to be the process of vetting utilities. And we're the, if you will, the person going through the gauntlet as a basis to give them this impetus to create this. With regards to options Mr. Casey alluded to, I'm cautiously optimistic that they will look at every possibility before exclaiming that there is nothing else we can do but what is the status quo. With regards to that, I made it real clear to them in a polite fashion, but informative, that we are a donor island, a donor community. above and beyond the services the county provides, the county inures yearly over $1 million in cash. How they use it, I don't know. How they, encumber it, I don't know if they do. But I said, we're not a very selfish community. And if it means we had to go to the board to ask the county to approve expending additional dollars to the Department of Planning and Redevelopment budget so they can hire, if you will, an RF radio frequency engineer who's not available on site in-house, but an outside contractor, to resource them, give them the tools, I represented that I would advocate here that we do that. What's the money for? For what rainy day? It's for causes such as this. Mm-hmm. At some point in time, I think I'm worthy of saying, there's an idea, here's a problem here, you don't have the tools. Well, we have money, we're not with our hat in our hand and it's empty, but our hat is full. And so I planted that seed. I don't know whether it will be pursued, but they will look at their if you will, their current contracts with outside vendors, engineering firms, and determine if there is a radio frequency engineer, expert that can help them assess, as we see recently, prospective poles to be planted in Cypress, Westminster, Seal Beach, or Rossmoor, Los Alamitos. We don't know those distances to the one pole that necessarily our pole that's on, is it Orangewood and Los Al Boulevard?
Yes.
If it can relay necessarily as with other poles, or if we could configure different poles different than Foster Road and Gertrude to relay the information, because they are redundant. That's their hope, to have redundancy, but they do relay. And so in order to triangulate, is it necessarily what they say it has to be the distance to triangulate and be redundant? Or are there other options? Height, as Mr. Casey alluded to, closer distances, further away, we don't know. And so someone with that expertise has to do that assessment. In-house, per se, they're not sure if they have those tools. But they have contracts with engineering firms on the outside that may. And if not, I planted to see that they should consider securing a contract, someone that can help them vet this. Because this is going to come up again with the water company. It's just a matter of time. And again, will involve radio frequency signals to a relay pole somewhere to get the data to the water company in turn that they can do the billing. So we're crossing that road. It's a new adventure. We have very intelligent, bright, professional men that are doing this on our behalf. They work for us. They're county employees. The gentleman brought in from Arizona, I have a lot of confidence in. Very bright man. And
he seems very sincere.
And very sincere and understands the issue.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So it's a story that's unfolding, and it's not finished yet, but we do need to continue to work with them, the county, and they need to carry this through, and I think we are the, if you will, the
guinea pig
going through the gauntlet.
Oh, yes, we are.
Did the director Silsby come up with that scenario where we should get a consultant, or
I suggested that, but he mentioned that they have contracts with engineering firms. He wasn't sure if they have a radio frequency engineer.
To really assess,
Correct.
like who's assessing it on our end?
Correct.
Making sure that it's the right fit.
It's as the guy in Cincinnati says, according to the representatives of SoCal Gas when they've come here, or in communications via email with Mr. Ruth, that necessarily what this guy in Cincinnati says is correct. Now, mind you, I'm sure the man in Cincinnati or gal in Cincinnati has the best intentions of the world making it work. They're not concerned about anything other than making the system work. I'm sure he or she has a vision of how to execute this plan. But the vision has blinders on. It's dealing with where people live as opposed to making a system work efficiently and cost effectively.
And your point is when you lay a sewer line or you lay electrical in the ground, the public works have professionals to experts.
The challenge.
To look over that, and for this new technology, there really isn't that, and there's more to come because this is brand new technology. We don't even understand. Of course, we don't understand it, but even public works may not understand it.
Well, they get the big idea,
Sure.
but they can't make constructive engineering suggestions from their ideas. They have to get it from a person who has a professional engineering license that would say, this is what I do every day. I'm licensed. I'm proficient at this. I understand the technology. This is how this technology can be modified to accomplish the needs of certain communities or certain geographic areas. Someone that speaks the utility company's language.
So what's your suggestion? What should we do?
I think, number one, that in closing, I made the overture that one, we here in Rossmoor would make ourselves available to Mr. Sanzheimer and his staff to look at the strategic spots in the community that were months ago photographed and identified as alternative spots for the planting of these radio frequency telemetry poles. I went through them, identified them where they were, as best they could give them a word picture. But until you come here and get familiar with the roads and where these areas are versus the one pole that our SoCal Gas is discussing, you don't know the distances, you don't know why those are not as impactful, if you will, or as aesthetically concerning, because they're the triangle over on Lamson and Seal Beach Boulevard. They might be the Seal Beach Library. It could be the parking lot behind, say, Sprouts. It could be a drainage canal. It could be Rossmoor Shopping Village in the parking lot area. It could be a number of places. And until you come here and look, which only takes probably an hour or two driving around.
And they're willing to do that.
To visualize.
Did they commit to coming out?
County said they would take us up on our offer. So I volunteered. I said I would make myself available.
Good.
To do that. Once they see that, and then they can understand, well, yeah, why not? But then it still requires an engineer to challenge, if they ask companies, modulation of the signal or the height of the pole and the distance of one pole to another.
Interesting, very interesting.
Absolutely.
They understand what we're saying, but until you see it, until you touch the area that's impacted, then you really understand. You go, well, why not?
This was just step one.
We're just at,
and it was very favorable.
So they're open-minded. They're going to support us as best they can, but it's going to be a continuum, and this is not going to be over and done next week or next month.
Okay.
So I think we have an obligation to stand behind the course we've set forward and work with them. That's what we pay them for. And I appreciate Mr. Ruth making that segue and that introduction and taking the time to do that. And relationships are important. Mr. Ruth has a relationship with those men, at least one of them for sure. And it's because of that relationship, I think that the door is open.
That's good.
Okay.
Well, then, let's just know that each month, seems like every month there's always an update. So this is probably going to be on the agenda next month too, so we'll just continue.
Every month there's new information too.
I would say that I feel very good that one, a permit hasn't been issued and that the county doesn't want to issue a permit until there's true clarity. I like the idea that they seem to be cooperating and actually wanting to be an ally and fight the electric company on our behalf. So very good work. Let's continue that. I'm glad you guys were able to take last Friday times off your schedule to go down there. That was well worth it and good relationship building. So thank you both for making that happen. Any other discussion here, guys? Okay. We now go to H5, discussion and possible action regarding election of special district representative to LAFCO.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Once again, in this past week, it was a very busy week, we had a great opportunity to meet with LAFCO Representative John Withers, and his term of office is coming up for reappointment or reelection to the LAFCO board, which is very critical to us when we look forward in the future to our latent powers issues. He's very influential, very connected, and he was good enough to come out and meet with Director Coletta and President Maynard, and tell us about his vision and the vision which he believes the LAFCO board now is pursuing as opposed to some of their past practices. So with those comments, I'll turn over to President Maynard and Director Coletta to comment as well.
Thank you, Mr. DeMarco.
I'm sorry. Yes.
My younger brother.
I spent so much time dealing with
The other end.
I apologize.
As he said, Mr. DeMarco and I met with Mr. Withers. He is the most seasoned LAFCO member, representing special districts for, I can't remember the term.
14 years.
14 years. When you talk to him, he understands special districts, and he seems very well connected within the LAFCO. So we got a little bit of an education, Tony and I, of how LAFCO works, how they vote, how they interact with each other and with their own staff of the LAFCO. I believe that keeping Mr. Withers at that desk is important. And I'm not sure of the procedures of how we vote, but I would definitely recommend that if we vote as a board to support his undertaking and get him in there for another term. I think he'd be very helpful to any of our requests and requirements and would be a huge asset and great assistance to us. Tony?
I agree. It was quite an education. Very smart individual, very connected. He knows a lot of folks in this county and state, just like our general manager does, and he, from the hour and a half we met with him, understands our what we want to undertake and what we're about here in Rossmoor, and has a sister that lives here, which is great. He's a little grounded here. He's going to go meet her that day. So.
Yeah, he made a funny comment saying he always has to be careful of
Yeah,
the
exactly.
decisions. He goes because he has the sister living
I like that.
So
I don't know what we can do as a board, but
you can make a motion that we support, and as a board, to take a vote for him.
to endorse him or to just, what can we do?
To endorse him and to vote for him. We get one vote as a
okay.
board
All right.
of a CSD.
See how, I mean, it's an education for me. This LAFCO, it's a intriguing,
No, you can, any one person can endorse.
Hang on.
yeah, but as a board.
Board endorse. I don't know if a board.
Well, I think if the board votes, like you said, right?
Yeah.
You would vote to nominate Mr. Withers to that position.
Okay.
Okay. So I move that we endorse,
No,
nominate John Withers to his current LAFCO position, or he's running for the same position, right?
Yes, sir.
So I move that we endorse John Withers to a member of LAFCO's.
We nominate.
We nominate him. Okay, that's what I'm trying to say.
No, we pass, like, we nominate to cast our vote for him in the special election. Is that?
Yes.
That's
It's a nomination.
It's a nomination.
So I move that we nominate John Withers to LAFCO.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Let me know that we nominate him for 5-0.
Yeah.
Okay, we're starting to close out this meeting.
Nomination for him. I think Henry
Are we going to do general member items?
Well, I was going to actually, normally don't we go to a closed session, then come back to board member items? Is this the normal flow?
Do it any way you want.
Okay. Is there any preference here, guys?
I would prefer to get the general manager item, the board member item. We have people in the audience. They want to
Yeah,
hear
I
what the
think
general.
so. Yeah, just finish it off.
All right. Mr. Ruth, now's your turn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Actually, we covered several of the items I had here, which is good, but just a couple additional ones. I just want to make sure the board's fully aware that our staff is really engaged with the RHA in terms of the festival coming up in May, and we're working very cooperatively with them, and they have exceeded the past signups and expect an outstanding event, and we're just proud to be a partner with them and working with them as a co-sponsor. That's on Sunday, May 4th, and I'm sure all of us will be there. Also, just an information item, the school district, actually Los Alamitos Unified School District, is going to be going through some modernization of their district offices. And they've asked to see if there was any time available for this auditorium for them to conduct their school board meetings. And I know they contacted President Maynard, and he contacted us. And we have about 14 dates which are available to them. I emailed them back and talked to their superintendent. They're also checking with Seal Beach at this time to see what's available there, and offered them an opportunity to come down and tour our facilities, take a look at our physical and technical needs, and see how we can accommodate them. So they're very appreciative, and as soon as they get back to us, I'll let all of you know what the outcome of that is. But a good cooperative venture between our respective agencies. And I believe that's all I have. Let's see. Met our new attorney, and that's all I have, Mr. Chairman, for this evening.
Okay. Board member items. We'll start on this side tonight.
I would ask the general manager to reach out to the Rossmoor Advisory Committee members and to set up a prospective meeting to bring them up to speed, as well as to have discussions on additional services beyond the latent powers of 3 that we've discussed over the past 2013 and in part on and off during this new calendar year. Given that we're going into a season where we're soon coming up to where we would launch an application after the election, I think we should look at this with our eyes wide open and then get their feedback and see if there is a consensus beyond the 3 services we have discussed, and whether that is an opportune time to apply for more other than the 3.
Wow. Not to muddy the waters any further on the I-405 expansion project, but in conjunction with the corridor cities, Assemblyman Alan Mansour, who represents a lot of the cities along the corridor, as their assemblyman, has introduced an assembly bill, and I don't know how far it's going to go, and since it's an election year, you can be doing it for various and sundry reasons, but effectively what the bill states is that no toll lanes can be put on a freeway in a neighborhood that's impacted by it unless 2/3 of the voters in the community approve the toll lanes. So that's just one more piece of information to see where that may go. And lastly, we've discussed this one person who's been instrumental in organizing a lot of the city meetings, and I can at least give you her title and who she works for. So the lady's name who's at least instrumental in setting up a lot or coordinating these different and sundry meetings, her name is Cori Williams, C-O-R-I, and she is a senior associate with a company called Townsend Public Affairs Incorporated. And
Who's paying her?
I know the company well.
Don't put any humor. This is not funny. And
They want more work.
She's located on Dove Street in Newport Beach, 1401 Dove Street in Newport. So that's just one additional piece of information. And lastly, I just want to thank Liz for the excellent work on everything pertaining to cloud computing, our servers, and the deadline that was coming up so quickly so that we had to make a decision. The data you provided was instrumental in allowing us to make, I believe, the right decision. And
thank you very much for placing your confidence in me.
absolutely.
I think Bray IT should pick you up as a consultant in sales.
But does that mean we'd lose her if we did that?
certainly would.
Well, that's not a good idea,
No,
then.
it's a good and a bad thing.
Allowed to leave.
Yeah, and that's all I have.
Director Kaler?
Geez, just two real quick things for the community. I urge anybody and everyone to please send a representative, or at least stay on top of the 24th of April meeting for the emergency preparedness that I believe that the RHA is going to be sponsoring. I think that's vitally important, especially with the most recent earthquakes that we've had. I know, for one, it would be difficult if I don't do something. So I'm actually looking forward to that evening. And then the May 4th festival, I'm excited. I can't wait to see whatever the new booths are. You guys threw those teasers out, but you didn't actually tell us anything. So now I'm gonna have to show up on the 4th.
I heard there's a dunk tank for a board of directors.
Start on that side first. And that's all I got. Thanks.
Director DeMarco?
All right. You guys have hit on all of my, I'll just reiterate, the Carnival, May 4th. Congratulations to the Principal of the Year 2014, Kiva Speratos. Liz, you did an excellent job. I would say that any district or city who wants to look into the cloud, all they need is to come and call you, because you've done an incredible amount of work. I mean, this was a massive job, and I think where the community's better off now because of your research that you've done, and then moving forward, I think we made the right decision. And I was thinking the cloud was the way to go, and it's not at this point, maybe in the future, but thank you very much. Doing an excellent job. That's it.
Specific for the festival coming up, I want to encourage, please send out a sign-up sheet. I would like each of us to at least take an hour or two. There's always an RCSD little booth. This is a chance where we can connect with our community on a person-to-person, face-to-face basis. So wear your RCSD shirt so people know who you are. If you don't have one,
I need one.
No one ever gave Mr. DeMarco a shirt, so he needs a polo.
Well, I have two, but I'm not giving him one.
So anyhow, send out like a time schedule so people can pick little time frames and stuff like that. And the Sugar Festival, that sounds like a lot of fun. It's going to be in our own little backyard here, so that looks like a good time. Encourage people to go to that as well. And have a great spring breaks coming up. I hope everyone has a good time with family, friends, and be careful, more kids will be riding their bicycles. So, before, we are not adjourning at this point.
Let her speak.
But please come forward. I see someone raising a hand.
I'd like to make a quick announcement.
Okay.
I want to take a few minutes
Thank you, Chair.
about our Los Alamitos High School. I don't know if anybody knows this yet. Last Wednesday, they went to competition for show choir in Nashville, Tennessee.
Nice.
And Sunday night, I was watching Channel 2. Do you have somebody in show choir?
No, but I know somebody, yes.
Oh. Well, anyway, Channel 2 News was at LAX, and they were talking about Los Alamitos High School show choir coming in, and they are national championships again for the 6th time in a row.
Awesome.
Wow, it's
So
like
we're
Glee.
very lucky to have them in our school district.
Awesome.
That is awesome.
Fix is in.
Yes,
No,
it was great.
Awesome.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Miss Ruth, I think it would be a kick if we actually had them here and had them sing a song or sing the national anthem or something. I don't know if those type of choirs do that type of thing. Just saying.
That's not a bad idea. I like that.
I'm sure there's some Rossmoor residents too.
Give them a certificate.
I will.
Well, yeah, it's well deserved.
So
Closed session.
next up, we do have a closed session. We're going to have conference with legal counsel on existing litigation pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9, Section D, Section 1. We also have conference with legal counsel on anticipated litigation. But before we go into closed session, we will open up if anyone would like to come during a public forum and speak about this closed session. I've been told to do that, and no one wants to, and no one ever does. So we're going to adjourn to our closed session, gentlemen. Hello and welcome back. We just concluded a conference with our legal counsel. Counsel, can you please memorialize this?
At approximately 8:52 p.m. this evening, the board recessed into closed session pursuant to Government Code Sections 54956.9, subparagraph D1, and 54956.9, subparagraph D2. The board discussed 2 items on its closed session agenda and took no reportable action. That concludes my report.
Thank you. At this point, is there a motion for adjournment?
So motioned.
Second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.